Hey, here we go.
Yes.
Good afternoon. It is Monday, January 10th, and the time is 1:03. We are here today for a workshop. The first order on the agenda is agenda review, followed by board self-evaluation, followed by prioritizing workshop topics, and then good of the order. So in saying that, I'm going to, Ms. Morgan will be with us shortly. Ms. Dupree Bruno is here with us via phone. We do also have Mr. Hudak here sitting in, just in case we have any questions that we may need his assistance on. So thank you, Mr. Hudak. And Dr. Savage, if we could begin with the agenda review, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. It'd be my pleasure. The first item that is up for review is item I-4, approval of the monthly budget report for the period ending November 30th. And 2021, the question is, when will funds listed for Quadruple A be reallocated and where to? A, when will this budget item be adjusted? Forgive me, I'm trying to see who is
I think that's Ms. Gittens.
answering up who is stepping up to our microphone today. Just taking a quick look. I don't have a name listed on here, just as so reallocated of funds.
Okay, so would that be Ms. Millay or?
Finance?
I know who would normally answer it, but I just want to make sure. Well, I can always do my best without it as well. I just wanted to.
Well, while we're waiting for that person, this is a Ms. Gittens question. Do you have any?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. I see Ms. Millay. She comes and she goes. I had asked this before about when I look at the budget, when we had Quadruple A on there, there are amounts listed. And if we don't have Quadruple A, where do those amounts go? And I'm basically used to seeing a debit and credit type, budget, that if something is a debit one day or you move it, it becomes a credit or vice versa. How does that work on the budget?
So remember,
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are
hi
you?
there. Kelly Letcher, Director of Budget. So with the Quadruple A, when it was pulled back, the budget is just a plan that's laid out, and so it adjusts up and down as we go. Just because something's pulled right away does not mean we adjust the budget right away. We need to take time, all of staff, to look at the cost increases, where what's happening, reprice things to make sure that we can cover the cost, and then decide where it is. We don't want to just go in and add something because that came off, because we might need that money somewhere else. Staff has not had the opportunity yet to go back and relook at all of those things. So the plan is that while we're building the FY23 budget is the time that we'll sit down and go back through all of those documents, look at all of the pricing, look at all of the things, see where we need to readjust at that time. Remember, most of that right now, even though it's in the plan, I think it was $42 million for this year and $42 million for next year. It was also, we were going to take out a COPS, and then it was through the debt that it would be in. So that piece will be coming off from that school, and then we'll look at how we would spread that money throughout the rest of the time. So rather than just going and adding something, we want to make sure that we've covered all of the increased costs we need for everything else.
So had we already taken out COPS for Quadruple A?
No, we had not yet.
So and I know I was told before it had not been spent, so thus and such. I hear what you're saying, and I understand. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just feel like, we hear, and it'll come up later on in one of my other comments, but we hear the cost increases and all the things that are happening and changing, and we know that. So waiting to do the 23 budget to me is not an acceptable way of dealing with this funding, especially because we know that there's needs that are, being put aside or whatever, or saying that because of the rising costs of the materials and et cetera, et cetera. I just feel there's an urgency in deciding what we're going to do, that I don't know that we should wait until we look at the 23 budget to decide that, because that's further down in the year.
We're starting that process right now. And
But it's not final until July or August.
It is tentative in July. After you all have your June meeting, we go through it, and then in July is the tentative budget, and it is basically set at that time, and then it's just a final formality in September. But if we have needs that come up between now and then, we most definitely will be looking at that funding to go into that place. But until we have time to really go through and look at everything and say what we think those increases will be, as the budget director, I would have a hard time just putting that money towards something else, knowing that might have that need somewhere else when they get a chance to look at the different increases that happen. And I don't believe that Scott's group has had the opportunity to go back and reprice everything that's on the capital plan based on the rising costs as of right now.
Okay, I'll save my other comments, but thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Morgan, we just started the agenda review.
Okay, great, thank you.
So is there any other comments or questions regarding that item? Okay, Dr. Savage?
Madam Chair, I-5, the ratification of contracts for the emergency purchase of food-related supplies, storage, and delivery. The questions were, please explain these costs in detail. How do we sustain this if things never go back to pre-COVID? As well as please explain the purchase of food supplies to date, who we have contracts with to date, and do we still have the same contracts we made in June of 2020? And we are joined by Ms. Millay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to answer any of your questions about the food contracts. So you may recall we've had a lot of activity recently, so hopefully I can clear up some of the questions. So back in October, the board approved a $35 million expenditure for us to feed our students the way that we will need to in the wake of changing contracts. So the $35 million is estimated to cover all products and services related to the food purchase, storage, and distribution. So of that, about $26 million is anticipated for food and related products, about $1 million for warehouse storage and delivery, and about $4.2 million for distribution of the food. So at a higher level, the food will come from the grocer to the warehouse, where it will be stored in 3 different climate-controlled environments, frozen, refrigerated, and dry goods. The warehousing agency will then package and palletize the goods for each school delivery, and our distribution team will then pick up the pallets that are marked per school for delivery. So whereas the grocer is providing pallets of green beans, the warehouse is repackaging and preparing orders for specific schools, so it might be a pallet of green beans, chicken, and corn going to a school. So that's the what and the how that we're doing it. Some other questions were related to the cost. So we have been very, very fortunate that both the federal and the state government are closely monitoring the supply chain issues and its impact on our students nationwide. In the past 2 years, at the end of each year, they came forward and provided additional funding, millions of dollars above and beyond what had originally been budgeted, to compensate for the additional rise in costs and challenges that have been faced. We received word last week that we can again expect this year to receive additional funding from our Department of Agriculture to cover the costs, these additional costs that we're bearing. So fortunately, this is going to be largely, if not completely, covered by funds from our Department of Agriculture. One question was about the contracts that we have and if they've changed since 2020. So you may recall that the Power Buying Group is a large purchasing entity of school districts who are purchasing food and related items in the state of Florida. We've been a member of that group for many, many years. And the Power Buying Group had the contract previously with the vendor, U.S. Foods. The U.S. Foods vendor canceled their contract with the Power Buying Group and many others across the United States. And so the Power Buying Group went out and negotiated a replacement contract with Sysco. So as of last week, Sysco is now our provider of groceries, foods, and related items. So our contract continues to be with Power Buying Group. Power Buying Group changed the grocer, so all of us in the Power Buying Group have that new grocer. Are there any follow-up questions?
Ms. Vaughn, please.
Yes. How many additional people have we had to add for the kinds of things that you described that will be happening in the warehouse with the food? And have they had any kind of special training, since food products, some of them are very time sensitive, others might need a certain level of refrigeration, et cetera. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Certainly. So these operations are not going to go through our district warehouse. We have contracted for these services. So in the board agenda for tomorrow, you'll see that we're asking the board to ratify 3 contracts that have changed since October. The first one is with our grocer through Power Buying Group, so that is one contract. The second contract is with a vendor named Florida Freezer, who is now our warehouse and packing entity. And the third entity with which we're contracting is OC Trucking for distribution from Florida Freezer to our schools. So that flow of product will not be affecting our warehouse. And I learned through this process that our warehouse could not even house a single day of food for all schools. We think it's a big operation, and I mean, it takes a lot of work, and we have a very hardworking team there. However, the volume of product that we're producing is much larger. I think we serve 77,000 meals a day. And so that goes to the warehouse vendor, Florida Freezer, and therefore there is no additional labor from our warehouse. However, that doesn't mean we haven't been posturing to make sure that as things change, for example, there are a couple of local vendors that we've decided we can go and get. There's a frozen pizza that the kids like, and that we could buy that and stock it in our warehouse. And our warehouse has a team of people who currently distribute food products to schools. So that same team would be available to distribute that product on demand.
Oh, okay. And I didn't understand about the Florida Freezer. So where is that located?
It's in North Fort Myers.
Okay. And who oversees, who oversees that, the invoices and what comes in to Florida Freezer and what goes out? Who's tracking that? Who's in charge, I guess?
So I see that your questions are leading to how does this impact district personnel, both with the warehouse and this? So that's a great question. And so our warehouse team is not terribly impacted. Our food service team did allocate one position to oversee the ordering, both from the large bulk items from Sysco to the warehouse and to the distribution. So we have one person. We actually created an email where all 3 vendors will email their invoices. We've had a very large team of district staff supporting the IT integration of their automated systems with ours. And so many, many hands have been working on this for several months, and we are postured, we have our contracts in place, we have our procedures in place, and, certainly we'll have a few kinks starting up. We can anticipate that, as with any large systematic change. And so the impact on personnel is Candy Messenger, the Director of Food and Nutrition Services, is overseeing everyone. She's working very closely with Tracy Adams, the Director of Procurement, for contractual compliance, and Mike Gatewood in finance for invoicing and so forth. So there are a lot of folks overseeing all of those things with one person dedicated to the particular orders and invoicing component.
Okay, but I guess I keep pointing to the, is there an actual person from the district to, I've been in a position where I've had to receive multiple orders, not like this, but multiple orders. And companies do make mistakes. And is there, I'm not sure what Florida Freezer does except accept these things and digitally sends the invoices, and do they actually check off what has been received? And then what I'm saying is there's kind of a chain here. So then OC Trucking Services picks up the pallets, right, and distributes them to the schools. So there again, we have, there could be a mistake.
Absolutely. So what we've done to put in place measures for that is actually we've met with the vendors together, and we've talked about the flow of orders. So a bill of lading will come from the bulk grocer to the warehouse. So that is one piece of information that is sent to both, Cisco sends to both Florida Freezer and the district. So we have a checkpoint of what vendor A says they deliver and what vendor B says they received. And so our specialist in food services will be syncing up, because she will be placing the orders. And if it would help, I will tell you, each school prepares their order, and it's aggregated in a single spreadsheet with a summary roll-up page. And the point person in food service uses that to place orders, to track orders when they're received and through the school. Okay. So there's documentation that follows. It's physically, actually, a team of about 10 people went to the warehouse and observed the paper going on the pallet, what happens when it's stored, what happens when it's pulled, so that we could visually see what's happening. And we got into their system, got training in their system, talking about the reports that'll be exported to make sure that we are all overseeing the validity and confirming what we're being billed for.
Okay, I just wanted to understand the process, because if I am correct, prior to June 2020, we didn't have the interim steps in there. It wasn't the food.
So we have
delivered directly to
we
the
have
schools.
Just last week had the very first shipment of bulk product to our contracted warehouse. So this has not physically gone into schools yet. So it has been delivered to warehouses, and so we are just starting that process in 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So maybe if you could, with that, because bulk definitely is a much better way to go because of savings and all the processing, it definitely behooves them to check, because at the end of the day, whoever's short, they're going to know they didn't count right. Mm-hmm. So, we all do that in our businesses, in the hospitality world. But in saying that, is there savings? Because we are doing that now with the bulk and being able to buy that with the power group, buy more, which should have a lot of savings in the end, correct?
So we have been a member of the buying group for probably 20 years, if not longer, to obtain those steeply discounted prices, because we're buying in bulk. Right. We have introduced the new costs of warehousing and distribution. When the one vendor who canceled and another vendor picked up, they made a commitment to the state of Florida to support the power buying group and the schools in Florida, and they asked that we give them time so that they could staff up it and purchase the vehicles that they need for distribution. So if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably say within a year. That's, I think, everybody's goal. They'll be staffed up and back to delivering directly to schools, which would end up meaning we could close down the contracted warehouse, empty out the product, and then resume operations in a normal sense of the world and have our grocer deliver direct to schools.
Great, thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Was, when U.S. Foods canceled their contract, what was the bottom line, I guess, effect on the district financially, and was that what triggered this process?
That is what triggered this process. We have to receive food, and what is new about this process is we are storing it locally and distributing it locally. So that is, I will tell you that before my time with the district, we did engage with the same warehousing vendor, and we used to receive product there, and then we would deliver it from that contracted warehouse to our schools. So we were back at the negotiating table with a vendor we had done business with previously.
So before this, we were still involved with the power buying group, okay, to get the supplies. But there wasn't as much on our end for the delivery, am I correct?
Correct. The delivery is the new component with the trucking shortage and everything going on.
So, and that's based on, besides the trucking shortage, the cancellation of U.S. Foods pulling out and all of that kind of exasperated.
Right. The prior vendor, we would purchase the food from them, and they would deliver it to all of our 88 kitchens. Now we can purchase the food and store it centrally from that vendor, but then the distribution component, so they've stepped up to the plate and said, we will commit to Florida schools to get you all the food that you need. At this time, we can't deliver it to every individual location, but we commit to making that happen.
Okay, I'll reserve my other question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Ms. Giovanelli?
Okay, I have several questions because some of the things triggered that, but what are other districts doing? This can't be, we've got an employee shortage throughout the nation, so what are other districts doing at this time? Do you know?
I do know because our Director of Food and Nutrition Services has weekly meetings with Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and so first of all, there are more than 30 districts participating in the power buying group. So half of the school districts are in the exact same contract situation that we are. And I'll let Candy add any more to that.
So currently, Power Buying Group on our behalf has contracted with Cisco. They also have a handful of U.S. Food that said that's the smaller districts from a different warehousing U.S. Foods. So that's what Power Buying Group did. Other districts that were not part of the 33 schools in the Power Buying Group are currently not affected, but they will be affected as of June. Those contracts will end. So we're a step ahead from the rest of the districts in Florida. So, and I can tell you from Pinellas, which is a larger county, they are getting food delivered to staging areas throughout their district. They are leasing trucks to hold that inventory, and then they are using their staff that they've hired to move that food to their locations. So right now, there's a lot of moving parts, and my fellow directors are dealing with a lot. Any other questions?
Yes, this might be for Ms. Millay at this point. So, with all due respect, I guess it's taken us 6 months to figure out a plan. because US Foods canceled their contract in June, so right?
No, not quite.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So the contract, we were notified in the fall that the contract would be canceled with US Foods. In October, the federal government and the state government notified us of the recommended approach. In October, we brought that information to you. Before we went for winter break, everything was in place. So from October 19th to December 18th, the district team from many, many departments worked extensively to put in place contracts to ensure that we have a smooth transition.
But I thought I saw a contract that was, with the US Foods contract was dated in June of this, over the summer.
Our power buying contract annually renewed in June before July 1st of each year, and at that time, US Foods had not declined to continue to renew. It was about August that we started hearing about it, and it was about the 1st of October when we had the official word, and the board was notified October 19th, and the district put in place contracts by December 8th.
Okay, so, and in all due respect, I understand the situation because it's a nationwide thing, and my concern is sustainability, and you're hopeful that in a year from now, we'll be back to pre-COVID, I guess I should say.
I wouldn't say pre-COVID. Our goal would be to have some or all direct delivery to schools. So if we could reduce having to warehouse and transport, because that is an added cost. So our goal would be to, and our current contractor has agreed to pursue, in fact, back in October, they had a national recruiting event for truck drivers, and they have been working diligently to step in, commit to the schools, initially make sure we have the food that we need, and then expand to being able to not only provide the food, but to be able to provide distribution services.
So,
Bless you.
and something Ms. Vaughn made me write down some of these questions, because it's almost like we're going in the grocery store business. So I'm concerned what happens to like the coolers and all these refrigeration, the purchases that we're making, which is, $35 million is a lot of money. So what happens in a year? What happens to all that the refrigeration that we purchase? What happens to that? What do we do with that then?
So we are the largest food provider in the county. We serve 77,000 meals a day. So we have previously, the prior request before any of this occurred was a power buying group contract for $26 million for food. That's what we buy, that's what we feed our students. So now what's a little bit different is that in addition to buying the food, we have to distribute it. So that's where we are.
Okay. And so back to Ms. Vaughn, she was asking who's going to manage it. And so that was what, so I'm thinking produce, who's the produce manager? Who's the delivery manager? Who's the merchandise manager that's going to make sure that the expired foods are going to be not distributed to I just know there's a lot of other details to this that we're asking staff to do that are they qualified to even do? So that's my concern,
So we have a very large food service staff. There are over 800 employees in our schools and in our central offices. We have registered dietitians, and we are not going to be micromanaging at the level of course, every manager before they serve checks the dates, but even at the point going from the grocer to the warehouse vendor is validating expiration dates before they will store it. So we luckily have had a team of about 20 people working on this for several months, putting in place operations and checkpoints and making sure that we have validation at every step.
And so I understand that in all due respect, but I have pictures of food from last year that parents received that was out of date, had been frozen, and even some of it was even in September, and it was in seed-to-table baggage. So, and I didn't think we were even purchasing from that. So, I am concerned that the quality will even go down worse. I have my granddaughter, and I'm just going from personal experience. She's not eating lunch, and they're not being told what's going to be on the menu that day, and so therefore she's not eating lunch all day long until my daughter's getting her food on her way home. Now, my concern is my granddaughter's going to get food, but what about those students that are there during the day and the food is not edible? And so that is my biggest fear, because that's the only food they may get for the day. So that is my biggest fear, is that the quality is going to even decrease from what it is in the last year, and that wasn't even perfect. And I know I spoke about this recently on a Zoom call with her. I'm sorry, your name, and I apologize. But on just Monday, there were students at schools that didn't have anything to drink at all. They were out. So, I mean, this stuff can't, that's managerial part. That starts that's back in who you're saying is doing it now, and that happened. So, I mean, this is major for food, is a major thing for our students. And so I am very concerned. $35 million is a lot of money for us to go into the grocery store business for a year. And so I'm having a hard time.
So let me address some of those many questions that you just posed. First of all, we are in the same grocery business that we have been in since we've been in operation. You may recall during COVID, the food service staff were the frontline workers supporting our families more than anyone, and they were face-to-face and in person. We have a talented team who is able to continue to provide the $26 million in food we had been serving in the prior year. We have added to that cost the ability to distribute the food, store and distribute. So that's the added cost. We have not purchased any more or different. We have purchased different foods, but we are in the business of feeding our students, and we have a dedicated department to that, and they are qualified to manage the meal service. I will share with you that if there are particular issues about food in any kitchen, I would request that you send an email to Candy Messenger about that. Last week, we received a couple of accusations that proved to be inaccurate. For example, the district was closed for 2 weeks for winter break. Milk was not delivered before we went on break. Schools were not open to receive deliveries. Deliveries came in on Monday, so the managerial plan for Monday, January 3rd, was that all schools served juice instead of milk. And when we were told of one particular school, we followed up and found that that school did not run out of any beverages at all, that perhaps there was a misunderstanding that because juice was being offered, maybe we were unable to obtain milk. It was the plan to not serve milk because we couldn't receive fresh milk until the day that school opened.
Yeah, well, that's a communication issue. So it's, so here's what I would like to see. I would like to see the prior cost that we spent for the last 3 years in food, because I know it was not cheap then, and then what this, I already know this is $35 million for the year. If I could get that, that would help me, because I think it puts in perspective. I mean, because it could be like this anyway. So I would like to see that. And what else did I have in my notes? Because I just kept writing stuff as you were speaking, and I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. And the other thing that you mentioned was fresh produce. This bid has nothing to do with fresh produce. There is no fresh produce purchased on this contract.
Okay, so that leads me to, so back to my granddaughter. So they're not putting up a typical schedule for what's going to be served every day, because it sounds like to me they don't know what they're going to serve, because they're saying manager special, but it's been that way for a long time. So therefore, my daughter can't pack my granddaughter's lunch that day. So
Right. So maybe
she
if you
doesn't eat, and then she
maybe
likes
if you
her
think
food,
about it
so.
this way, when you're going on vacation and you have to empty your fridge and eat what you have before you go, and then when you return, you have to stock your fridge again, that's kind of the transition we're in. We had one vendor, we have different product lines carried by the two vendors, and what managers are being asked to do is to utilize, while their food is fresh, everything that they have for the transition period. A new menu has been planned for the year, but as we go through the closing in December and the opening in January, we ask for a little bit of leeway in defining what foods will be served, and we commit to getting back on schedule with a standard menu that will be published and shared with all.
Okay, so my granddaughter would like to put in her order for pizza and tacos every day. If it can be Taco Tuesday every day, she'd be happy. Thank you.
May I ask one? Okay.
I'm going to have Ms. Gittens and Ms. Patrica.
The question I have, Madam Chair, is something that needs to be asked in closed session based on where we are legally as a district right now, and I would like to request a closed session to be able to ask the questions regarding food service. Can we please do that soon?
Ms. Dupree Bruno, are you?
I'm on. So, Ms. Gibbs, I'm not sure specifically. I'm not sure specifically. Oh, I'm hearing feedback.
Right. The reason I'm not saying it is because I know that you will come on and say you can't say that. So I'm saving you the trouble. And what I am asking for is a closed session because the question is definitely relevant to this. It's not going to.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay. It's not going to stop the vote tomorrow.
We are going to have a closed session regarding a particular case that I'm not necessarily sure if the relevance of all of this, what Ms. Millay has been talking about, is pertaining. However, I do understand what you're saying, and we will be having a closed session. We're actually supposed to have it this week, but it's going to be postponed, but we will have that closed session.
Okay, and I would like to say that it has nothing to do with passing this tomorrow, but this to me has led to the questions that I have, which I cannot say, so, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms.
So, I mean, your granddaughter is super young. My mom is the opposite of that. If I said her age, she would disown me as a child. So I won't say that, but I'm in the grocery store with her the other day, and she's looking for her favorite crackers, and she can't get them. The entire cracker aisle is stocked with Ritz, every version of Ritz known to man, and there's like nothing else there. I have to assume that that is part of what we're dealing with here with the manager special and the, not being able to guarantee that we're going to have Taco Tuesday and Pizza Monday or whatever it is.
Yes, so in fact, Candy alluded to earlier, Ms. Messenger alluded to that we were ahead of the game because we had an option to stay with the prior vendor until June 30, but they had made commitments at the beginning of the school year that they were not able to honor through October and November, so we were seeing a declining our regular orders, we couldn't get them. The quantities were being reduced and being forced on us even after we said, okay, can you reduce this product? Then they'd send fewer and fewer trucks. So to stay ahead of that, we made the transition earlier than some others did, knowing that we had seen a decline over a couple of months, and this new vendor is stepping in, making a commitment, putting their best foot forward, and we think that we would have more luck and better service from somebody who's coming in and proving themselves rather than somebody who had already canceled their contract.
The other thing I'll say is I am hearing some concerns at schools about the quality of personnel that's making those deliveries to schools. So this new process could potentially eliminate that. Am I making sense?
Yes, okay. Yes.
And then I do want to say, starting next week at the school, they do have a menu up for the 17th, but it is not tacos and pizza. I just want you to know that straight out.
Okay, she's going to be
Doesn't
upset.
count.
So I wanted you to know that, so tell her now. Is there any other questions for Ms. Millay regarding this? Thank you, Ms. Millay, and thank you, Ms. Candy. Dr. Savage?
Madam
Oh,
Chair,
yes?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, please.
if I could say something, I just want to add to what Ms. Millay said in terms of what the team has been doing, because they were extremely proactive when all of this started to come to fruition. Basically, we were in a food shortage crisis, and we realized that in January, if something was not done, we would not be able to serve the thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that actually rely on the district. So, there was a lot of negotiations, again, to Ms. Malay's team, because they really did put the gas on the pedal and even put some pressure on me to get some stuff done because of the crisis. I want the board to remember that this was an emergency and this was a crisis, a food shortage, supply chain crisis that we've had. And this will come before you tomorrow. And Dr. Savage, we need to make sure that we also explain that on the record for the minutes, that this is a reaction to a food shortage crisis pursuant to our policy.
For sharing that, Mr. Pre-Bruno, because it's not just with us, it's nationwide. So thank you for sharing that. So Dr. Savage, and it looks like we have, without you asking all those questions, it looks like a lot of those questions were already asked regarding that same issue, explain the costs. So I think we're to number 2 already.
Yes, I think that those, we did address those questions there. The next item was J1, which is in Human Resources, and this is approval of personnel recommendations. I'm just going to read these questions, and then Mr. Dodig will kind of respond. He'll break them up and answer these. The first is the early childhood position new or replacement? Why are teachers being moved from classroom schools this time? Is Guzman's positions replacing Dominic G? Were there any outside applicants? Why does IT need their own HR? Is John Gordon working with Cindy McClung on strategic plan? Who will he report to? Is this a filling of a vacant job or a new position? So all these are related to the HR. Rob, if you want to take those one at a time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, the early childhood position is a new position funded by Head Start and Early Head Start. Second question is teachers being moved. Actually,
Excuse me, just one thing on that Head Start. Is that a multi-year grant that covers that? Or
I don't have the answer to that about the grant.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Teachers are being moved. Actually, these are what we would call promotions or people progressing in their careers. One of the things we've talked about is whether we should not allow that to happen under the current state of our employment. And the superintendent and academic services and other divisions, we've decided that it's important for people to be able to progress, to be able to keep them under the current state of the employment status in the United States. So an advancement is an important ingredient. If you look at anything out there right now about the Great Resignation, one of the things that folks are saying is chance of advancement will keep me with my current employer. So that's what these positions are: teachers going to deans, teachers going to specialists.
Right.
So they're not necessarily lateral transfers, if you will.
Gittens, go ahead.
Okay, and I totally understand that. And I understand that if someone is sitting stagnant in a position forever, then they're going to look for other opportunities. I just, in talking to teachers every day that call and talk about they just don't know how long they can continue to do this. And we are losing them. Yes, we're hiring some, but, we'll hire one and lose two. Mm-hmm. And that's the real raw picture right now. Mm-hmm. And I just think that there's a way to present this to staff that no, there will not be absolutely no career development for the next 5 years, but they all are in the schools and know what the issues are and how difficult it is. And, almost saying for this period of time. In the past, when I, worked in the district, there have been freezes on certain things. And we are, desperate times, call for desperate measures. I feel we are about as desperate as we can get right now from the calls that teachers and their families and, even some of the, people working in the schools. It is a desperate time, and I've said this before, we're hemorrhaging. So I just am wondering, can't we look at some type of a publicized freeze that is not a long term, but saying for this period of time, can we all just pull together, and therefore we have enough people to take care of the students? I mean, it's really crisis time right now, and I'm even talking to administrators, and they have asked about, coaches are good in good times, but right now we need teachers in classrooms. So that's my issue about it. I've mentioned it before, and I hear it all the time from staff that are out there in the trenches covering classes every day, not having their breaks because they just can't. And why can't we put some of the people, even at the district, I know it's been suggested, to have them have their office in a school, so at least they're an extra body that if they do need to cover a class or whatever, that, and I'm not trying to tell you how to do it, I'm saying these are things that they have come up with.
Ms. Morgan, you had a question?
Well, no, actually I have a comment about what Ms. Gittens is saying. And she has made this statement before, and I think we've all talked about our concern about staffing in the classrooms. So I think, basically what she's asking is the board to direct the superintendent to implement a freeze. And I think that's the conversation she is asking the board to have at this time. So let's just go there.
Thank you for making me brave. Let's go there.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, actually, as Ms. Gittens was speaking, I was kind of, if I wasn't nodding like this, I was nodding in my brain, because you figure as important for certain circumstances, the coaches, we're talking about academic coaches, are, the main problem is having enough teachers in the classroom. And I think if you were to measure these things, knowing teachers as I do, as Ms. Gittens does, they don't want to give up all their conference time. They will, if there's an issue, a really difficult issue, and they feel like they're struggling on teaching something in particular, we do have our experts here in district offices, and I love the idea for some of the schools that are having the most difficulty, I love the idea of perhaps one of our specialists, like 3 days a week or 2 days a week, whatever, or rotating among some schools, have an actual office there to help out with those things. But we need certified teachers in the classroom. We don't need our teachers to cover for more teachers, other teachers, and not have any planning time, because that is a big morale buster right there. And I would go with the idea of a freeze on these things right now. And I would be the first one to say teachers have to have a path to remain a teacher and yet advance his or her path, career path. But this isn't the time, and I think everybody who is dedicated to the classroom, as our teachers are, will recognize that. So I would favor a freeze on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Morgan?
Yeah, so my concern is that we're getting a little into micromanaging. It seems to me that we have an obligation to tell the superintendent whether or not we want something to be done. It's not our responsibility to tell him how to do it. What I am thinking as we're talking, is there the possibility of promoting people in place for the current contract and not making a move?
We've talked about that actually with academic services, yes. In fact, we've been round around about all of these issues since I came here in September. So we completely understand that the classroom is the most important and sacred place in this school district. We understand that. The coach issue, this is one person going from a coach to a coach, so that person's not changing positions. The others, just to give you an idea, there's 8 positions. 3 of them are teachers going from teaching positions to deans, so they're still working in a school with children. There's 2 teachers going from teachers to specialists. They work with children. So we're not removing teachers from working with children, and we're not removing them from having necessarily a classroom to a coach, like that was the concern when I came here. And we have essentially frozen that. We're not doing that currently. But I'm all ears relative to a freeze, but I will tell you that intrinsic things for employees right now are very important to keep them retained. And so if you tell someone you're there, don't even look at the job opportunities because right now you can't progress, that could have a negative effect too. It's a double-edged sword. It's a very difficult situation.
Can I just say that, thank you. Okay, so yes, the people that you named, they're moving laterally or whatever.
Well, that's why I thought this was the question
right,
today. So.
And I understand that, but it's a bigger issue. And when the coach thing is a real issue for me. I mean, when you hear teachers say, we have teachers that are the best of the best that are only teaching part of the time because they're in this program. That's good for good times. That is fine, but why not? And I agree, we're not trying to tell you how, but I'm trying to give you the idea that it is a real major issue for those teachers that don't even have a planning every day. And they're seeing some teachers that only teach half the time because they're a coach. You talk about maintaining and keeping, and then you've also got, I got a call the other day from someone who does 504s and IEPs, and they're still required to keep up their level of the number of 504s and IEPs and all the stuff they have to do, plus they have to cover classes. It's not just, one level, it's permeating throughout the building. So anyway.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica?
Do our neighbors to the north and south, Charlotte and Collier, have freezes?
I don't want to say yes or no. I'm not sure, but I could certainly find out.
If we put a freeze in place and they didn't, that would be a retention issue for us big time.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I would need that information, please.
In fact, we're wrestling with a job fair situation with Collier. Nobody wants to choose the date right now for a job fair. So this is what's happening with trying to attract teachers.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I'd have to get more information to even make a consideration of that. I mean, I don't believe in dictating what people should be doing, so I have a hard time with controlling that completely. Because, I mean, honestly, if they want, they don't have to stay employed here, they can go somewhere else. So, and that's what would happen. And so that, I don't want to chase them off, I want to keep them here, so.
Thank you. And then Ms. Fisher, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, and I would piggyback on that, because my concern would be with the freeze, that we would need to see what are the potential ramifications, what's the appetite for that among our teaching staff, and as we are moving forward, we continue to recruit, but our big challenge is the retention of teachers, particularly classroom teachers, as well as support staff. So I think that we'd have to have a real deep conversation and look into, what potentially could result from that, rather than to say to people, okay, there's a freeze now, so you're not making any progress. I think that could be, have a negative result. So I would definitely want to see some more information.
I'm going to get Ms. Patrica and then to you.
I was just going to suggest we put this in the parking lot.
Okay. Dr. Savage, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to be able to respond. I really want to agree with kind of Ms. Giovanelli's position on this. For us, in our current standpoint, what we've learned, even in our schools, when we overly restrict our families' ability to choose the schools they want, then some families will choose to instead go to a particular charter program or private school. And what we've also found in our human resource standpoint is, if you restrict people's ability to do things, and here's, if we had to implement a freeze, there's just so many repercussions to that. So I think I want to really look at the issue systemically. That's why I was going through the agenda to really look at each of these individual ones that are on this particular piece, because I'd really want to make this data informed and data driven, not something that we do anecdotally. If we were to implement something this, it would have to be, I think, very surgical. I know we've already this whole year really limited the ability for people to move into instructional coach positions, because all those folks who are in those positions are actually teaching. That is what they're doing. They're not actually coaching in most cases. They are implementing, and Dr. Speyer reminded me just kind of in here, we've really lost our traditional coach model. It's just not being implemented. I also just wanted to bring up, because I don't know that we've really talked about this, is that the district leaders were asked to put together, actually schools, let us know a lot of the shortages that they have, and so district staff are actually filling in for a lot of the areas that schools have told us that they have a need, whether that's covering at the front desk, whether that's all manner of different things, so that we can fill that with district staff people who can bring their work. They can sit there and answer phones, but also check their email at the same time. This truly is an all hands on deck piece, but for our employees, I would say that if there is, I've heard the board's dialogue about the freeze conversation. I think what I would like to do with the board's permission is have that conversation more in depth with our staff, allow them to kind of put forward pros and cons of what what have been verbalized here today. And then furthermore, if there are any areas that we really believe that would be an essential strategy, that we would articulate that particular piece. I just would hate to put the fear out there among our employees who overhear this type of conversation and then assume that there's no hope. I think at this time right now, the most important thing we can do is give all of our employees hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't want them to feel like they have to go somewhere else in order to have that hope. We want to address it here meaningfully. So I just ask that. I really appreciate all the conversation that we've had here today as well. I think there are some more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn and then Ms. Gittens.
Okay, I respectfully disagree with a lot of what was just said. Yes, having been on this board for more than 3 years, I understand about the micromanaging, but on the other hand, as someone who has deep experience with teaching, with the mind of a teacher, with friends of mine who are still teaching or who left teaching early, I can tell you right now that if you did some kind of a study on it, we will lose more classroom teachers because they are up to here with work and they're feeling unappreciated. We will lose more of them than the risk of somebody moving from a day of teaching, let's say it's in high school, 6 out of 8, and now teaching 3 out of 8 or something like that. That, to me, that's a whole lot of more risk that teachers will see that. The classroom teachers who have absolutely no downtime during the day, no matter what that coach is doing during his or her extra time to do coaching specialist things, those teachers see it as, look, they get, and yes, they can breathe a little bit more. They can actually do, I'm just telling you the mind of a teacher, and I know what it is even after being out of the classroom for this long. I ask the people in HR and some of the other people in academic services who are making this decision to tell me how many years did you spend as a teacher, and I'm going to be frank that many administrators that I know that are no longer school-based, and even some that are school-based, they seem to get amnesia pretty darn fast about what it's like, and most do not have any frame of reference of what it's been like for the past couple of years for teachers. So I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to say, if not the term freeze, I think we need to take another look at it. And, you know, if we can afford people here in the district to go do their work and answer phones, I'm going to question whether that job is even needed here. If they can fill in 2 jobs, hey.
Thank you, Ms.
Comments.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Gittens?
Okay, well, first of all, and with all due respect, I did not personally intend this to be a fear-mongering thing or to make anybody think they had no hope. I will tell you from a teacher perspective, when you look at your schedule at the beginning of the year, the first thing you look to see is if you have first period planning. And you groan and moan because you know the first period planning means 9 times out of 10 you will not have a planning. You'll be covering a class for someone until the teacher arrives or until a sub arrives or you find somebody else. That's the day-to-day grind of it. And yes, there are people that want to move up, but I think the masses are the ones that are suffering. And why not ask them? I mean, some of us were teachers, we know what we went through, but we didn't go through it during a pandemic. So we need to ask them. We need to hear from them. I know I do. I don't know if the rest of you do on a regular basis.
We've heard from them through bargaining.
So.
And just agreed to a very significant change to the language regarding payment for coverage during planning time. So.
Well, and just a quick example, one of the other counties with their ESSER funds, they announced in the fall that at this time we're going to give you this and at this time we're going to give you that. Even though these people were still working overtime, they knew that coming down the road, they're going to get this in 6 months and this in 6 months. We need to just pull the trigger and give the people hope and tell them what we're going to do. Our bargaining and all of that with the ESSER funds took too long, and it did cause some people to figure, we don't know when we're going to get this, if we're going to get this anyway. They just need some hope and knowing that there's some help and that everybody is in this together.
Okay, so I'm going to, I know we're already at the hour mark for just the agenda review. We're not even completed with that yet. So I'm going to, there's a lot of good conversations regarding this one issue here. And so I hear from quite a few are saying, you know, bring back more information. Nobody wants to be halted. I hear that there's a disagreement over here. So are we okay with Dr. Savage bringing back to us some recommendations on this going forward?
If I could, I wouldn't mind this being a workshop topic and listening to you all. I have no problem doing that, and with some lead time to bring you information. So I think it's a critical time for human resources to inform the board of what's happening without talking about bargaining, because that is a significant part of it. But we need to inform you, you need to inform us, because I'm hearing ideas and I'm hearing other things, but I want it all to be spoken about. And
Pardon my interruption, and data as well. I'd love to make, so we can put some numbers to this so that it's not just, you know, kind of philosophical. It's really, let's talk very specifically, what are these types of jobs? What are the movements? What have we seen since the start of the year?
Yes.
I think if we were to look at that, it'll be very productive. And then we're really addressing the system level piece of this. And then it gives them a lot of opportunity to ask more in-depth questions about that specific topic. And then we can keep working on it, because that's some of the most important work we're doing right now. So very good points.
Yes.
And I would agree, and I would like to see the information of what we're doing to be proactive in retention, you know, so add to that, not just
together.
working on,
Absolutely.
you know, the negative side. Let's see what are positive things that we're doing. Because that's
Absolutely.
important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, he still has questions.
Yeah, I still have some questions. Mr. de Guzman is being approved tonight. The question was, this replacing Mr. Gemelli's position? The answer is no. Mr. Gemelli was a director. This is a coordinator position that was created by merging the senior planner position with the GIS position. So this is not Mr. Gemelli's position.
But is that what they'll be doing? They'll be doing planning and GIS?
I would have to, I don't see Ms. Ebal here.
And you can get back to me
Yeah,
for time factor, but I just,
Just repeat, merging the planner with what?
With the senior planner with the GIS position.
Yeah, okay, senior planner, okay. got
And
it.
then the question was, were there any outside applicants for that position? The answer is yes. There were 2 outside applicants, and there were 9 total applicants for that position. Next question was about, I believe, the HRIS position, I believe it was
is
about.
it IS or IT? I may have gotten.
IS.
Okay.
So you asked, why does HR have an IS position? This position, just so you know, has existed for over 10 years, almost 15 years. Dr. Atkins brought this position to the district. Rita Davis, Mark Mora, Dr. Halstead, and Kevin Coffey have served in this position in the past. This position supports the software and programs that HR uses on a daily basis with both staff and our customers, applicants, employees, and they are used and are critical to the work just in human resources, like Laserfish, for instance.
Okay.
Is one of the
thank
programs.
you.
Yep.
I just wanted to explain, thank you.
Next question is John Gordon working with Cindy McClung on strategic plan. Who will he report to? The answer is yes. He will be working with Ms. McClung, and he will be reporting to Matthew Kay, who's the Director of Accountability.
Makes sense.
And the question was asked, is this a vacant job or new position? It was a vacant job. Ryan Libby left that position. Questions?
Oh, go ahead, I'm so sorry.
Just a real quick question. I noticed that there was a resignation back from June. Why would this now be coming up on our agenda, over 6 months later? Was it missed or back in June?
An administrator? Do you know?
No, it was a teacher.
I don't know. I'd have to get more information for you, Ms. Giovanelli.
Okay, I was just curious because it's a June 18th, 21. It just popped out.
It would be possible that the person just did not report since then, and then we heard from the person. I mean, we've had a lot of interesting circumstances happening with our staff, so I'll find out for you.
But gosh, 6 months, it seems like somebody's not doing their job. Just saying.
I'll find out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item L2, the approval to piggyback City of Mesa RFP 2017025, grounds maintenance, parts, accessories, supplies, related services. We have Frederick Ross coming up to answer, and the question is piggyback with the City of Mesa, Arizona for grounds maintenance equipment. Are there not equitable local options available?
Good afternoon. Frederick Ross, Executive Director, Operations Capital Planning. This question is for our maintenance department. So we purchased the Toro Company mowers. They are national landscape equipment manufacturer, and this particular contract requires you purchase from their local distributor. For us, the local distributor is Westco Turf out of Sarasota, Florida. So previously, our maintenance staff evaluated these mowers against other mowers and found this brand to be most effective, mainly because of their large capacity, and it enables them to be a little more efficient, especially with lack of grounds workers right now, struggling to hire grounds workers. This definitely helps us out. So that's why this particular brand was chosen. At that time, they did look at different mowers that did come from some local suppliers, but this was the national brand that was chosen. And I can kind of ditto this in my previous employer. They purchased these same mowers from a piggyback contract, so it's somewhat best practice in government to use these.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher, that was your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Savage?
Yes, Madam Chair, L10, Good cause approval for the total project cost estimate Phase 2A for the Veterans Park Academy for the Arts renovation. Again, Frederick's going to lead us off here, though of course there are a number of different folks depending on the questions. So the question is, what is the name of this school? Have we voted on this school and the plan for this school? Is the facility vacant? How long has it been vacant? Please advise why the rush now. What are the plans? Regarding Old Lambs renovation, please explain the long-range plan and why the rush to open in August. Explain the extra cost for labor and materials and how much of the Quadruple A budget is being redirected to this project. So those are all pertinent to this particular question.
Yes, so actually kind of a team answer we have here. Somewhat filling in with Ms. Kathy Ebar not being here. We have, Mr. Guzman stepped away. For your first question, was this voted on? The Phase 1 project cost was brought to you previously and approved to begin this services. So this is Mr. Rickenbacker bringing back the actual GMP for the Phase 2 of this project. Yes, the facility is vacant. A small area is still currently being used for classes until the portables are refreshed, and which will be completed in 2 weeks. It has been vacant since June of 2021. In terms of the rush, really just lead time, based on Mr. Rickenbacker's calendar. If this is not if this GMP is not approved by the board at this time, we will not be able to make an open date for August. So it's imperative that it gets approved right now so the construction company can begin what they do in order to get the project complete, and so we will be open for August and have students in seats in August. In terms of the long-range plan, I'll start with short-term. Short-term is to get this Old Lambs renovated and get it open so we can have those seats in August. That's the short term, and that's what you will be approving today. Long term, we've engaged with an architect who's going to be doing a master campus plan. So they'll go through this whole process involving district staff and recommending and planning kind of what this will look like long term. Definitely would be able to bring that back to you in some sort of a workshop or form for your review and approval. But that's kind of the long-term plan is still to be determined in terms of what the master plan will look like. But currently, we know we need to renovate this Old Lambs building, and that is what this is for. Any extra labor costs for materials, Scott may give you some more information on it, but I think that's just for the accelerated pace of the project, the urgency of getting it done, the increase in material costs, all those go into the extra cost for labor and materials. You want to add to that?
Sure. When you look at the additional costs for overtime and acceleration, those are all allowances within the GMP, and they have to be approved by district staff, meaning me. What that is that's a safety net. We already know right now that there are materials and delivery shortages across the U.S. If we have to pay red tag direct shipping, send local trucks out to get the materials, if we were already scheduled to work 6/10s on that site, if we need to pull in a Sunday or work a double shift, that's money available in the GMP so that I'm not trapped having to come back to the board to get an approval. All that money, if it's unexpended, will be returned back to the district, just like contingencies and things of that nature.
And then I think the last question, how much of the Quadruple A budget is being redirected? I think Kelly Letcher answered that previously.
So I'm going to ask, Ms. Giovanelli, because I know you had the first ones, and then I'll go to Ms. Gittens or whomever else.
Actually, you can go to Ms. Gittens because most of my stuff, I think he answered it.
He answered it? Okay.
Yeah, I
just want to make sure.
Make a couple notes, but he answered.
Ms. Gittens?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
I'm just very disappointed in this whole project. I really am. We've heard from parents and people at the school that they're concerned about, separating the school. I have brought up before, why don't you just leave VPAA as it is and do a middle school? Everything seems to be, though, and it has been in the past, centered around the fact of wanting a performing arts center. And that wasn't mentioned in this, and you did say phase one, I think it was August of last year, and I voted no on it then because I felt we had not planned. Mm-hmm. When you look at the fact in the last school year, this school year, 3 possible school sites were involved in this. And we had, when we moved from the students from the old Lambs to the new Lambs, and I said to you, we had this conversation, there's 1,400 kids here, how are you gonna move them over here to 1,200 seats? Well, what happened was the extra seats, the extra kids were sent to VPAA, so then you had to move kids from 4th and 5th grade from VPAA to the old building. The portables were not fixed in a timely manner, so they couldn't go in there because they weren't up to standard. At the last meeting at VPAA, the teachers that were handling the 4th and 5th grades were very concerned about having to, in January, move and go into the portables so you could get in and start fixing. It's just too much. And then you've got the whole staging school behind Lehigh Senior that has sat empty all year. And why couldn't they have just, taken those extra kids, put them in there, added some more kids to it that were going to go in there, and fix this school right? Initially, you were going to, I think it was HVAC and changing this and changing that, and every time we hear it, it's less because of the timing. And I've said this before, I mentioned it to the superintendent, what is the rush? If we have a staging school behind Lehigh Senior, why can't those kids that are going into that school go there in the fall and give them time to finish this, to open it in December, in the second semester? We are rushing, and each time we change this, there's less that's happening. If all you were going to do is the things that you have on this list now, you could have done that over a period of time and left the students at Lambs there, and we would have had 1,200 more seats in the East Zone for middle school students. But we didn't, because I don't know what the planning situation is.
I can't disagree with your statement on that. That's not what construction does, but I just would like to...
I know. I'm not blaming you.
I don't take the blame. Got
I
the
am
shoulders.
venting because it is really wrong on all.
Okay. I do want to just clarify a couple things. One, the trailers, getting them refurbished was not delayed. They actually were destroyed. And the minute that the kids moved out and those were emptied, when I came to you with a phase one total project cost, that is my vehicle to input the dollars to fix those. So we got that approved, and we actually broke that free and did a work authorization, and they're underway. They're being built. And we had figured a Christmas time to January switch. That's why we put some of the kids in the old building just shortly, while we renovated those, and hopefully in 2 weeks we switch them out, and then we tear the building apart. This is a major renovation. Originally, the very beginning, 2 years ago, was to put $4 million into that school for some paint and carpet. That was it. That's when it was still going to be Lambs. It's subsequent, based on some board direction, some concerns of yours, Ms. Gittens, the communities and administration and academia. It was asked to update it, do a real update. Let's make this something that'll be an attractor. So in my first projection of cost, I had $8 million in there and about $16 million for the art theater building. Budget approved $30 million. Construction available, when you take 30 and you do the design, left about 24. We have subsequently reduced and increased the renovation to $12.7 million. We're putting $12.7 million into that Lambs building. That's not going to leave enough money to build the theater building. We're still doing the design. We'll still go out for a GMP, And then if that's something the board chooses and the district staff thinks is appropriate, then we may have to come back to you for some additional funding. So that will be phase 2B. That wasn't to be open until the following year in 23, I believe. We are doing everything. The question and concern has come up, you have mentioned before, about the HVAC. We've had maintenance go through, and the air handling units inside the building are still in good shape and aren't in immediate damage or disrepair and won't function. They work. All of the windows are in good shape. Now, are they the current fancy energy efficient windows? No, but they do not leak and they're in good shape. So we've gone and we've shifted the program based on board decision and community decision to really bring this school up. We're redoing all the locker rooms, total replacement of all ceiling tile, all new LED, fully sprinklering the entire building, redoing all of the bathroom spaces, all the classrooms getting refreshed and all new technology and data being pulled through with the Promethean boards. I think, and a brand new front entry, which is pretty spectacular. I don't know if you've seen some of the graphics, but I can get them for you. I think you're going to be very, very surprised at the way this building comes out. The contract that we negotiated several months ago allowed the CM 205 days from notice to proceed. Well, I can't give a notice to proceed until you approve it tomorrow night. Super would sign it, then I give a notice to proceed. That puts us out past August 10th. So potentially, let's just make an assumption, you'd have 1,035 kids without a school seat. And last I recalled, we've never had one school not open on the start of school and the other 110 open. If I use that time frame that I just spoke to, that pushes that school into late September, October, and it's not acceptable. I sat with the construction manager. We streamlined the time frame. I agreed not to do DMP to accelerate the ability to get the goods and services and long lead materials. He believes that he can get this job done. This particular contractor has usually beaten his schedule on every job I've ever done with him for the last 15 years I've been here. The only caveat that he has is he can't guarantee nationwide material delivery shortages. Hence why we put the allowances into the GMP for acceleration dollars to help that out. And if something comes in a little late, then maybe we work a second shift 6 days a week. And we approve those bids. So to me, it's your call as the board. You are our leads here. I can only tell you I need it to be approved tomorrow night in order for me to be successful and have kids in seats in that school for August 10th. If we miss this, so you decide to come January 25th, I can tell you game ball, I can't help you. And you could look at other contractors and CMs, and they're not going to get you there.
But
Ms.
can I
Gittens,
just
I'm going to ask, I know Ms. Morgan's had her hand up, so I want other people to have an opportunity to ask questions or speak.
Yeah, so with all due respect, I do think that expressions of disappointment in what's being done in the district should be directed to the superintendent and not to staff. And that's number one. I think if there is concern on the part of one member about what has been done by staff, that it needs to be workshopped if that's what the board wants to do. I don't think this is something that we should be workshopping in a board agenda review.
May I finish my comments?
Let me make sure, is anyone else?
I do have questions, I'll let her finish her comments.
Go ahead, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, my point was, I did not blame staff. I do believe I said, I'm not blaming you.
Oh, no, I get that.
When you stood
I'm okay.
there, I said that in the very beginning. So I am not having a war against staff and blaming them. My thing is, where is the planning in this? And it starts way back from when the students were moved from the old lamps to the new one. What was the plan? Because obviously it wasn't working. And I'm not putting blame on anybody. I'm saying it is a problem that we have empty seats for a year and we don't use them. And yes, I am one member that brings this up, and I will continue to until we get some equity and some answers about what's happening in one particular part of this district. It is, and you say, well, we'll have more money to expedite getting materials. In this day and time, you can expedite all you want to, but if they don't have it, we won't get it.
Well, that's why I get paid, and my team and my staff and our construction managers get paid. You don't give up the ship. There's lots of ways to change materials, to change products and things. That's what we do. Now, been pretty successful. That doesn't mean that I will be successful at this. But I can tell you, with the team that we have assembled, I think we're going to get there. Time is of the essence, and I understand your frustration with the planning side of it, how we got here over the time, but I get the football. I'm running with the football, and my best recommendation to you is, if this is what your desire is, to have children with seats, I can't get more portables. I may not have enough space at existing campuses for the new loads coming in that are going to student assignment that are going to come. So this is, we're there. It's the last minute and 59, and I'm trying to throw that Hail Mary.
One last question is, what are you doing and what is the plan for using the staging school that is already set up behind Lehigh Senior?
Those trailers are going to go across for Franklin Park's rebuild at James Stevens. That's what they've been meant for. We leave them there for one reason. If we don't have them powered up for air conditioning and power, they get moldy, and the exact same thing that happened to some of the trailers behind Lamb's building. Unfortunately, we need to do a better job of maintaining our portables so we don't have to do this mold remediation and fixing up. That is where those portables are going to be deployed. We already have a design, and they'll be situated so that we can get that ready to move the kids out mid-year into those portables from Franklin Parks and start the demolition at Franklin Park Elementary.
So my comment about that is that's going to set back the East Zone, because while they're moved to another part of the county, then that still leaves us with no ability to have any staging for any new schools as well. It's going to set us back.
Well,
So
hopefully.
that's my opinion.
No, but hopefully, as we decrease the numbers.
Thank you for, go
we
ahead,
will
please
have
finish.
portables.
No, please finish your comment that you were.
No, what I'm saying is, with the new seats from the old Lambs being opened up, obviously you can't just empty them, but if you hold down the numbers in those middle schools, the trailers become open, we pull the trailers out, and we start developing that group of trailers, which will be used for our Cypress or our next middle school out in East Lee. So it's a process, and you have to start, and I think these seats are critical to that whole process coming and getting rid of portables at middle schools in the East Zone and preparing them for our new distribution for new projects.
Thank you. And Ms. Giovanelli?
Okay, so.
And then Ms. Fisher?
Thank you. Real quick, I noticed that it was COPS in August when we voted, and now it's going to the tax versus the tax referendum now.
Well,
right?
just so, I mean, I'll say it simplistically, but I don't want to speak for Kelly, and if I say anything wrong, I hope she would come up. All of our large capital projects are funded with COPS. We don't have enough fluid cash to pay cash for building. So when eventually you get the COPS, you do the build, and then our tax referendum basically pays the note debt over time.
I just wanted to bring that up, that's all. Now, one other question, because in my notes, is this a hurricane shelter school? Will it be, or is it not?
No, that building is not. In order to be a hurricane, you have to go back into the roof, the structure, I mean, unbelievable amount of work.
And then the students that are in the small area, what is that age group? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, God, I wouldn't, maybe curriculum, no, I want to say.
Now they're 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, they're four, yeah, right now they are.
It's 4th and 5th grade from VPA.
Thank you.
And then, Ms. Giovanelli, did you have any?
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fisher?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to say to Mr. Ross and Mr. Rickenbacker, thank you for keeping the process in a forward movement, and thank you for explaining in such detail the answers to the questions that are being proposed. And we want to keep the whole district in a forward movement, and I appreciate your professionalism and your expertise. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I believe that's it. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Thank you.
And, I'm sorry, Mr.
Well, this is back to the agenda. So I want to make it clear that I do want the prior costs for the food service for the last 3 years, preferably before tomorrow, Dr. Savage, and include the power buyer contracts. I think that's important. But just what our food service, what the costs were prior. And I think that's it for tomorrow. Thank you.
You said I'm sorry, Ms. Giovanelli, you said the cost for the prior year and the contract, right?
For a couple, yeah, actually, I just wanted to see what they were for the last 3 years, just to.
There's 11 million less.
What's the difference between what we're having to pay, obviously, and we know what we're paying.
Yeah, okay.
But, and then I didn't get an answer regarding what happens when ESSER goes away and how do we sustain this, but the plan is not to. I guess is what I'm understanding. And that was, I don't think I ever.
Here's, Ms. Milley's going to answer that.
Hi, Ms. Giovanelli. The question that you had asked was about when ESSER goes away. So the ESSER funds are not being used for the food service. And as I had shared previously, both the state and federal government are closely monitoring the food situation, and they have stepped forward and provided us additional funding the past 2 years above and beyond the budget that was given to us, and last week they committed to doing the same this year.
And I believe that was, I think that you sent that to us. I think that was sent to us.
Okay.
And also the contracts for, all the contracts that were being requested to be ratified are attached to the board agenda.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
This is based on one of Ms. Giovanelli's questions about what is the name of the school and were we, or the community involved in that. And we did not go through the naming process for the new lambs, and it looks as though we're not going to be able to have any say-so in the naming of the old lambs either. So I would like to get some information on who makes that decision, who made it, and why are we not involved? Why is the community not involved?
Would this be a workshop?
Savage, do you have any comments on that? Because have you not had community meetings out there already, or am I losing my
We've had
mind?
a couple meetings, but I think the two meetings were more focused on the scope and vision of the school and different concepts and trying to gain input from the various stakeholder groups that attended those meetings. But we'll be happy to have our staff review that, reconcile it with our current existing policy, and kind of provide a written response ASAP.
Thank you. So I believe that concludes the part of the agenda, and we are 31 minutes over, just so we can keep track of what we're doing. And so our next item on the agenda, thank you, Dr. Savage. The next item on the agenda is the board self-evaluation tool, and our Ms. McClung is here. And I'd like to thank you for sending all those other different ones that you have consolidated and sent to us. They were very interesting.
You're welcome.
So thank you for doing that.
Well, good afternoon, board members. Nice to see everyone again. So today we're here to discuss your board self-evaluation tool. We have the tools being displayed up on the screen. I'm going to try and make it a little bit bigger in a moment. But I sent you the one that you currently use, plus several other versions to take a look at. And so I'd like to open the discussion with, do you want to revise the one you currently have, or is there a motion to use a different one, possibly one that you looked at, or start from scratch? So I'd just kind of like to know what your thoughts are, where you want to begin with this.
Okay, so maybe just, Ms. McClung, you want me to just go down the line and see what?
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Morgan, revise or restart?
Well, I thought I learned a little bit something from each of them. So I think we do need to do some work on what we have, but I'm not prepared to replace it with anything. But I thought there was some good information in there. One calendar had the goal setting and evaluation cycle, another had the board governance goals, and then others had questions that I think could be added to what, or had questions that could be added to what we have in ours to provide more clarity in terms of expectations for a particular metric. So my vote is to stay with this one, but to look at the opportunities to revise it over time.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
I think that no matter what tool we use for self-evaluation, what matters most is how we respond to what comes up, because what's the use of even having a self-evaluation without an action that comes about? And so, you know, as I said, it doesn't matter to me what's being asked. We know as a board we pretty well made a D or an F, and there hasn't been an unusual grade. And if we were kids in school, we'd be getting some remediation that really does something. So that's my comment. It doesn't matter to me what the tool is. It's what do we do about our shortcomings?
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Well, I agree with Ms. Vaughn. This is going into year 4 for me, and I really cannot see where the evaluation, which in all the years that I've been here has not really deviated that much when year to year. And like Ms. Vaughn was saying, the purpose of an evaluation is to see what you can do to become better. And I don't see a need to, I don't see where changing the verbiage is going to make us change our behavior anymore.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica?
Mr.
Yes?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to remind the board, you also had a discussion about a 360 evaluation for the board, so I just wanted to remind you.
The 360 that Ms. Morgan has brought up several times.
So, me?
Yes, Ms. Patrica,
So I'm thinking, first of all, how did this item get placed on the, just if you could refresh my recollection, how this item got placed on the agenda?
I would have to pull up to see who actually requested it, but it was a board request that the tool be reviewed before the next evaluation.
Okay, so I agree with Ms. Gittens and Ms. Vaughn, that it really depends on what we do with it as opposed to what it says. I also agree with Ms. Morgan that there are good parts of each evaluation. I mean, you know, what we do with it really is up to each of us individually, but when I go through the tool, I take it seriously and I put time into it and I think about it, and if we could improve the tool, that might improve what we do with the outcome. So what I would recommend is that the board appoint a member to gather feedback from the board about how this instrument should be changed, and then that member work with Ms. McClung to bring something back to the board for approval. And I would like to volunteer Ms. Morgan to do that since she seems to have the appetite at this point.
And I'll second that.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Well, you brought it up more than the rest of us.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
Well, I actually agree with, I'm just going to go down the line.
Are you going to say Ms.
I'm going to say
Patrica?
ditto.
3 meetings in a row.
Ditto. I think it's important to have an action plan from that, and it's important to acknowledge and take ownership before you can ever learn and grow and change. So, and until we do that, and it's going to take all of us to do that, not just one person, it takes all of us to play equally to make that change. So I'll just keep it at that. Thank you.
And I will tell you that it was Ms. Gittens, actually, and it was back in May 24th, 2021.
Thank you.
Is she had put on her board self-evaluation tool.
It's too late. We already gave it to Ms. Morgan.
No, I'm just saying, but Ms. Morgan's on here too, so I'm just saying that's where it came from, that part. So, Ms. Fisher?
Yes, so looking over our current tool and then reviewing some of the others, I was particularly interested in the California School Board Association and New York School Board Association based on the fact that they specifically addressed some expectations regarding governance, goal setting, and a timeline and potential action plan and next steps. So I think that we could use a little bit of reorganizing of our current tool, because a lot of the questions were pretty similar. But I think we could be a little bit more concise and more pointed, and then make it a better possibility for us to do that goal setting at the same time we do the self-evaluation, and have the opportunity then to create some potential next steps. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, and I have to agree with you, too. I believe that, well, everybody, I think that we do need to have an action plan after the fact and have a timeline of when we will look at having that, at least, thought about, completed. So in saying that, thank you, Ms. Morgan, for volunteering.
It's called voluntold.
Volunteering, so I guess if there's any changes or any comments, if they would be sent to, I'm going to say, I don't know if we can send them, can we send them directly, send them to Ms. McClung? And then, if that's okay with you, Ms. McClung, I'm saying that. And then that way, Ms. Morgan can sit with you and you all can bring it back to us?
Fine.
Is that fine with everyone else? Yeah. Is that good? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
So, can I clarify something?
Yes, please.
So,
please.
Are you suggesting that perhaps we as board members look at the questions in the current self-evaluation and pick out some questions that are least helpful or maybe redundant, and then also go back through the other states and maybe some questions that either phrase things better or are included just to give them a starting point? Is that
Yes,
okay?
yes, that would
Can
be
we
great.
have a date?
As far as tweaking, and then,
What's
that's
the
it, we
date
need a
y'all
date. We
would
just,
need it?
the action, we need an action plan. We have an action plan, that's the action plan, and we need a timeline. Thank you, Ms. Vaughn.
You're
So our
welcome.
timeline, to get it back to Ms. McClung, would be, let's see. Sorry, I gotta find a calendar. Is a week enough for you all to put this together? Ms. Giovanelli, I know that your schedule sometimes is crazier. Is a week?
No, I think that we'll do just fine with the questions, and I trust the person you put in place to do that, actually. I think.
So let's say a week from today, if there are any changes or anything that you would like to add or see differently, if we could have that done, sent to Ms. McClung. I think does that work for everyone?
17th.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Yes, by the 17th. Thank you. Even though I know we're not here on the 17th, but at least by the 17th.
So what, we're just sending our
And
thoughts by then?
as Ms. Vaughn just stated, any kind of thoughts that would enhance, or if there are certain ones on here that are duplicated or just make no sense at all, whatever you believe would give us a better tool moving forward to evaluate ourselves and give us maybe some goals and what else was that? And action plans. So if we can do that, that would be great.
Be great, thank you. So if you get those to us by the 17th, then I'll set some time to meet with Ms. Morgan, and we will then find a time on one of the future workshops to bring it back.
That would be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Okay.
So that was
So
fast.
we just made up our time back. Thank you, ladies, for bringing back that time that we lost.
So we can move on to looking at your workshop topics. And
Yes.
first, I want to thank Ms. Morgan for going through and reorganizing the topics, giving them some headers so we could see the types that are there. I've also gone in and put in the dates of the ones that are already scheduled, and you have to way over to see those. But we do have several that are already scheduled. We have a couple that have been added just in the last couple of days. Over the weekend, Ms. Fisher had requested some information on Acceleration Academies, and I did check with Dr. Spiro and with Attorney Dupree Bruno, and got a response from Attorney Dupree Bruno that she needs to reconvene the group that's working on that. So as soon as we have some additional information, then we'll schedule some time for that one.
Okay.
So that one is on there. And then the second one was today, and excuse me, the possible hiring freeze. So if we have consensus that you would like to workshop that, then we can add that as well.
I think they said workshop, but they didn't want to use the word freeze.
Right.
Please do not use the word freeze.
Okay. How would you like me to word that?
Can I ask, is this on all of our drive? Iund the old one, I didn't find the
It's just on there's a new tab. It's on the old one, but if you look down at the bottom, it says reorganize
okay,
topics.
I get it, thank you.
Teacher recruitment and retention might be a way to title that, please.
Thank you.
Where is it?
I'm sorry, Ms. McClung, did you say it was under the reorganized?
Yes,
Topics,
the
correct?
tab reorganized, and I'm looking to see which topic I put it under.
Through the drive.
It was under policy and procedure, line 14.
Through Google Drive.
Ms. Patrica, sorry, would you repeat the title that you were suggesting?
Teacher or staff recruitment and retention.
I like staff, if it's,
Staff?
covers more.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Ms. Gittens?
No, I said I like, she said teacher or staff. I said I would like to have it be staff because it includes
Yeah.
everyone, bus drivers and staff everywhere.
Okay, so if we could just see thumbs up that everyone would like to hear back about that.
Ms. Fisher?
It's fine.
Ms. Vaughn? You want this to be workshop? She's trying to get. Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will get some information together on that and find a date on the calendar for that as well. And we did not do, we did not do the consensus for Ms. Fisher's request about the Acceleration Academies. Ms. Fisher, would you like to give some more information about that?
Yes, hold on one second. Got that here. Actually, if you just give me a second, I'll just pull up my email again.
So I know with the Accelerated Academy, Dr. Savage, can you just give us an update on what has taken place with that? It's been like a minute.
I just don't want to speak out of turn. I'd rather have a chance to make sure we have all the best information to provide to staff, to the board from staff, if you'd give us that time to put something in writing for you all. I'd prefer to do it that way rather than just speak up here.
So in terms of a workshop, can you answer those questions versus us having a workshop on this item?
You mean about Acceleration Academy?
Correct.
If we could provide some written information to the board in this weekly board update, then that way the board can have a chance to review that information that we provide and make a determination of whether it still warrants a workshop for that specific program.
Ms. Fisher?
And Madam Chair, I would just also add that some of the staff will be meeting probably in the beginning of February just to review everything as well regarding Acceleration Academy.
Meeting in the beginning of February to speak on the logistics for Accelerated Academy? Is that what you said, Ms.?
We're still looking at the numbers.
They're still looking at the numbers.
The main thing with Acceleration Academy is always the code, so that's kind of where we are. And I know that they're probably looking to start up again because it is January. So staff will meet and we'll be able to make a recommendation at that point.
And the code is what gives them the amount of students. Ms. Fisher?
Yeah, and that was what I was going to ask, was the numbers of students who would potentially benefit from that kind of a partnership, which is in several of the other Florida counties as well as other places in the country. And I know we've been talking about this for quite a long time, and at the last request, we were supposed to hear something about the numbers and the codes that could be used and the practice of Acceleration Academies in, creating their own kind of a charter school thing, but not quite being more of a partner for the district. And I did speak with people in Miami-Dade, St. Lucie, Sarasota, and I just was wondering, like, why it's been this long since we've heard anything. Because we do have a lot of people who have not graduated and have not completed in the traditional school and are not taking advantage of some of our other local charter schools. So I understand from some of the people, especially in Miami-Dade, that Acceleration Academy staff literally kind of goes out and finds the people who are not registered anywhere else in the district and have made a significant difference in some of the counties. So I just wanted the information back, because it's been several months since we've had this discussion.
And Ms. Gittens?
And I totally agree with Ms. Fisher. And I visited one of their schools as well. And they do take that personal touch with each one of the students. And looking at our current academic situation, we may need something like that much sooner than later, regarding how, students are doing during this pandemic situation.
Ms. Giovanelli?
We've been talking about this for several years now, and the thing about this is it's not only, it's like a partnership, but they actually give back 10% to the district. So I think it's a win-win, because at the end of the day, we want all our students to graduate with a diploma, not a GED, if we can direct them and give them that guidance. There's simple reasons sometimes why they don't graduate. Some could just be credit hours. Some could be circumstance that happened in their home life. This group actually goes out and finds those students, and they stick with them, and they have, I think there's a certain time frame. And the last I had looked at some information, it goes back to students that didn't graduate, that should have, goes back as far as like 2017. So, if we can reach those students from 2017, and that's my daughter's year that she graduated, and I think it's important that we find those students, and because at the end of the day, it reflects on the district and our student graduation. And I don't think we discriminate for anybody, and because there was something about the codes, and to me that's just discriminating against somebody and not allowing them and helping them get their diploma from Lee County that they should have received in 2017 or later, but or earlier or whatever. But I find it important that we need to stop kicking this can down the road. Either we're going to do it or not do it. And I don't know why it's been kicked down the road so much, but I would like to see it happen, because they take on the expense. We don't take on any expense, and they put it where the greatest need is. And I think that's just identifying our shortcomings and helping us along with them. And I think it's important, and I think we're missing the boat. I visited Sarasota, and that facility is awesome. It's right next to a Publix, and they make sure the student gets there. They make sure the student gets back home. They really see it through, and it was very fascinating. And the students were all very, very happy that I spoke to there. So, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, just so the board knows, when staff has been working on this, pretty much, I think everybody was on board to do everything we could to help the students and capture as many of them and help them reach the diploma. That was never the issue in terms of the philosophy. The issue was whether or not, because they wanted to have 2 storefronts in Lee County, whether or not it was cost effective for them to be able to do this. As Ms. Giovanelli said, you know, they're upfronting all of the costs and taking the financial burden and the hit, and that has been the issue in terms of whether or not there are enough students that will qualify to make it financially reasonable for them to be able to do that. And I can tell you that we had a lot of negotiations with them back and forth, and by the time we stopped negotiating in August, school had already started. So this is a good opportunity for us to reach out again and just kind of see where they are, as well as see what our numbers are now, because that really is the main thing, is do we have enough students that will qualify, because they have a particular number that they need to hit to make it financially feasible for them.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Ms. Fisher?
Yes, and I think that, I know Miami said that they have generated revenue of nearly $2 million for them, and with the 10%, and that they also take students up to 22 years old who have already aged out of our potential system. So I think it just deserves to come to closure and really get the information down, and they would be the decision makers about whether it was financially risky for them or not, because they've done it in so many other places, most recently, I think, Marion County and Escambia. So I just think that we need to follow up and make sure that we've made the right decision, if in fact we've made a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do believe that at one point they did put it on pause because there were not enough students, which of course equates to revenue, is what I had heard from them actually. So I think that we need to revisit that again for sure and make sure that we have all the information. Ms. Swan?
Yeah, my understanding is there was discrepancy with the lists and the codes that we sent to them initially. So
That's correct, Ms. Vaughn, to the chair.
No, that's
There was a discrepancy from a couple of years ago of the initial codes that were provided, which gave a different amount of students that may have qualified for the program. However, once we redid the proper query, then we learned that the codes were much, much smaller, the amount of students. So that's where there was a hiccup. And again, as Ms. Fisher said, it really is to them whether or not this is cost effective for them to move forward. But at the time, they went to their board and they were saying it was really very difficult for them from a financial standpoint.
Ms. Patrico?
So I'm hearing that we need more information to come back from staff and the board attorney, and then if we need a workshop after we receive that information, we'll do that. Yes?
I agree.
Thank you.
So you are going to be meeting from what Mr. Bruno just said. So once that meeting is over, if you will then inform us of what has taken place.
Yeah, I think just some summary information from what we heard already today. There's just a little bit more specific information about the codes, the different types of codes of students that they market to. There was some programmatic competition in terms of them marketing to students who are already enrolled in our programs. Just a lot of different variables that we want to make sure we articulate in writing for the board so that you all have all the same information from a staff standpoint. Obviously, the board attorney can weigh in on that as well. And then she did reference an additional meeting because we really are trying to get ahead of next year and to make sure that we're serving all of our kids and maximizing the value to our whole community. So,
Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Fisher.
yeah, two things. What Dr. Savage said was the other thing that I seem to recall about, it almost seemed like it was kind of a semi-political thing on if we were stepping on others' toes. And so I definitely want to make sure that we get unadulterated information, because we all know what people can do with numbers. Then the other thing is, I'm sure I can track it down through Acceleration, but a couple of you have been I know, and I'd actually like to, is the closest school Sarasota?
Yeah.
Okay, so that wouldn't be a problem if I just, on my own,
They'll schedule it for you.
They're welcome.
scheduled. That's what I figured, they'd schedule it, and, yeah, I think I'm gonna find some time to take a little run up to Sarasota, which is kind of a nice place to visit too. And see, yeah,
Great shopping, Ms. Vaughn.
and see what their schools are actually like, because it seems like the people that have seen it are all very positive in what they saw.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher? And then we'll,
I had something else I was just going to mention.
okay.
I've had a,
Regarding the same one?
no.
Okay, so as far as this topic, so Ms. McClung can have it straight, we are gonna, everybody's okay with them having the meeting, bringing everything back, and then we'll decide at that point, once that decision is made, if we need to workshop it, or, because it's gonna have to come back to us to be anyway.
Right.
So we're gonna give them till middle of February, when's your meeting?
We're going to give you some information as soon as possible, just to at least give you a starting point. We'll reference the meeting in that information we'll be providing you as to when that meeting is scheduled, so there'll be additional follow-up. But I just want to make sure you have as much information as we can provide you, just for context and whatever else that you'd need.
Perfect, thank you. And
then also, Madam Chair?
yes?
The other suggestion when we were negotiating this was to go ahead and bring a briefing to the board so that the board can really understand the program, how it operates, what we learned from other districts, if there are any pitfalls or what the successes are from other districts, as well as have a full presentation in terms of the codes, what they mean, and how it impacts the district. So that, I think when we get back together, that may be a topic, so you may see this coming as a briefing.
That sounds good, thank you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So right now, I'd say on hold until, and we should probably have a briefing, because the only way for us to engage is to get the information and through a briefing versus a workshop for us to continue talking about it. And we all have our own opinions on it, or none. And so we need to, I think a briefing will enlighten us, and also allow the community to see what this is all about as well, because that would start the process of even a recommendation from the superintendent or not. So that would be I would agree with that.
Great idea, Ms. Giovanelli.
Thank you, and I made a note that you would be receiving more information and that the board attorney plans to bring a briefing, and then you can decide later if you need a workshop.
Thank you.
And those were the only topics that we had at this time. Does anyone have any additional topics that they would like to bring up to be
So I'm
considered?
going to go back then to Ms. Fisher.
Okay.
I just wanted to finish that one so we knew where we were at.
So, speaking of gathering information, I've had several calls from parents. I think we have an increase in enrollment in our Lee virtual instructional program. And so I was just wondering about the numbers of students per class, and what is the staffing formula for Lee virtual instructional? Is it different than any of our other schools? And, just how are they handling that influx of people at this time with the increased COVID restrictions?
Okay, thank you. So are you requesting that be put on be brought forward as a workshop, a briefing? What would you?
Actually, it was, I thought that was to come to us once. Was that not going to come to us as a briefing or a workshop? Be virtual?
I seem to recall that being a topic, and I think it's a pretty pertinent one, specifically right now. It'd be an excellent topic for us to discuss, to look at that staffing, how it varies, especially with our current staffing shortages and the flexibility. I think it's an excellent topic.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a 5-hour ordeal, just people coming in and giving us the information of the who, what, where, when, and how everything's working. Ms.
Yes, it was a topic back in 2020 when we were going through the height of COVID and between 2020 and 2021 with the different methods of teaching, of classroom. And I had asked for it back then to kind of see how they were performing and how they were doing and all, and it never came up.
Well, I think what happened when it was getting ready to be scheduled to come to come up, and then the situation happened when we lost a person over there, I believe is what took place, and for some reason, it just never came back forward. But I think it definitely needs to come back again.
So if we could just get a quick consensus, and we'll get that
Sure. Would you have a
scheduled for you.
question regarding that, though?
And I just wanted to piggyback off of Ms. Fisher's. I have received a lot of calls regarding it as well, and so I take it upon myself to actually have a tour, which I'm going to do tomorrow down there. So because I know the need, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I know it's increased quite a bit just for this, even starting this semester, new semester. So I just want to make sure that we don't have staff, you know, I'm told there's like 80 students in a classroom, and that's just a lot. But like she brought up, you know, what's the formula and what's the plan? And so I just want to see how the operation's going first. So I would love to see a workshop or a briefing or something so we know more about it. I really believe that since COVID, I think that virtual school is really probably a very up-and-coming option for parents and students, and I think that we really need to look at making sure that the support's there, and everybody is successful, including our staff that work it. So that's I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe they start on the 12th is their first day moving forward.
New semester.
Thank you.
So
And
you wanna
it was already scheduled, and so this would actually just be a reschedule, so we don't necessarily need a new consensus. If you would like to go ahead and take one, that's fine, but it was on the schedule. I went back and checked, and it just didn't get rescheduled after it got postponed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, any other topics?
Anyone else?
Vanelli?
My granddaughter would like Taco Tuesday and pizzas. I want to remind everybody about that.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, I don't have the page pulled up where I can see anything. So is our workshop on our auditor? Anywhere on this? If it's there, my apologies, but I can't see that screen, and I don't have the document pulled up.
Let me look.
And if I may say, I have a report that I will give tomorrow about that.
I don't believe we have one scheduled as of now.
Okay, as far as no, as far as the auditor, I know that they were working on that because Ms. Schaefer had asked about the auditor putting that on, and I know Mr. Bruno has spoken about that.
Yeah, we had a meeting on it, so I have an update from the audit committee.
Yes, and then Ray, and not Ray and Associates, but RSM, and she's working on their contract right now.
All right, run that by me again, because this is new news to me.
Can we please wait for my report, because then you'll understand what.
Ms. Gibbs will be giving a report on this tomorrow. Or are you giving it tomorrow, or are you going to give it
tomorrow?
What's the news, what's the information that we should know at this point prior to what Ms. Gittens is going to present? Anything?
Ms. Gittens, can you elaborate?
She's
on this?
presenting on her
liaison.
committee,
And the
but
committee.
you just said somebody's working on a contract. Who's working on the contract? That's not a committee thing.
The advisory group met.
Ms. Dupree Bruno, I'm going to have Ms. Gittens share some information, please, and then I will come back to you. Thank you. Please share. Someone's asking for it, so versus telling them to wait till tomorrow.
Right, no, but I will give the full report tomorrow. The audit committee did meet prior to the break with RSM to discuss moving forward with like a 6-month contract. And the caveat to it was the previous contract that we had and the possibilities. Nothing has been decided. It was just discussed with them, and if prior to you want to watch or listen to that, I think we did. I don't think it was, I don't know if it was posted. It was a Zoom call. But the Attorney Bruno is looking into what the contract previously said to see the possibilities of revisiting that contract and having them to do a 6-month contract with us. So, like I said, I will do the rest of the...
So if I can have, Mr. Bruno, can you please share what you are doing with RSM?
Pretty much exactly what Ms. Gittens shared with the board. The only thing I would add is that there's no discussion about statement of work in terms of what they would be doing should the board decide to rehire them. It was basically RSM had requested that if they're even going to be under consideration, they need a master agreement to be vetted through their legal department. So I just drafted a master agreement for them to consider because the audit committee was saying that time was of the essence so that RSM can vet it. And then as Ms. Gittens said, this is something she will report back to the board in terms of their full recommendation as to how to proceed. And of course, it is up to the board as to whether or not they want to accept this recommendation.
Yeah, I'm really happy that Ms. Gittens is taking care of this and is going to give the report. But frankly, I feel a little blindsided because I don't, we haven't received anything about RSM since the last report, and certainly the committee, the auditing committee, is an integral part of that, but we're the board, and we're the ones that, I'm just a little surprised that they actually met with RSM. Had I known that, on a Zoom or whatever, I probably would have tuned in. Or is it online? Because I certainly would like to see it. And I'm not accusing anybody of hiding anything or anything like that, but this has been a topic that we have brought up over and over and over again. And again, the can kicked down the road. We've been out of compliance. And
Ms. Vaughn, if I may.
I'm just a little frustrated that this is the first that I've...
This was brought up, that Ms. Gittens, that the audit committee was going to be having a conversation, that I had reached out to them as per instructed by the board. The board asked me to reach out to them, which I did.
Right,
Claire
I knew that.
did go ahead and said yes, that she would definitely have the communication with them. That meeting was held. I was not there at that meeting. Ms. Gittens was there at the meeting, and the audit committee. And it is so that we can get, and Ms. Dupree-Bruno is working with them so that way we can get in compliance. As well as, once that happens, then they will, of course, then they're going to need to come back to us to see, as a board, to decide whether or not what we want them to do for us as the auditor, because that plan has not.
Okay, and I'm just going to end it with saying, yes, I know some of the puzzle pieces on there, and I remember conversations. I guess what I'm saying is I just didn't know that that was imminent and that was part of the agenda for that particular meeting, and I'm hoping that it is online because
I don't know.
It's something I would like to listen to.
Yes. Ms. Fisher and then Ms. Gittens.
Yes, so I recently asked a question about it. It appears that it was quite a while before the holiday break that we had this discussion and that we recommended people for the audit committee. We are out of compliance for nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm really concerned about the amount of time that this process is taking, and I would like to inquire and see if there is any way that we can expedite this a little bit so that we can get an auditor, which we are statutorily required to have, and get the ball rolling. Thank you.
That is definitely the process. We We said we need to get moving on it. We had the audit committee, we voted on the audit committee. RSM was not coming in here, no way, shape, or form without an audit committee, period. So they have that audit committee now, they've had their talks and everything, and so we are moving, yes, and we had the holiday break, so they try to do everything right before the holiday break, so that way this could take place the first of the year. Ms. Fisher?
So then I think.
Sorry. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, through the chair. I don't know if Ms. Giddens, if you want to just provide, perhaps that will alleviate the board's concerns in terms of what the actual recommendation was regarding RSM. I believe that the meeting was recorded and it was a Zoom call and it's online, so the board can look at it. Everything was in deference to the board. So just to be very, very clear, the only thing that was done was a draft sent to RSM based on their request because of timelines, because the audit committee does want to get a board auditor in place as soon as possible, which is my understanding of the recommendation. Ms. Giddens, if you want to chime in and make sure I'm accurate, but that's my recollection. And so that's why we moved. But this, just so the board knows, this meeting happened right before, I believe it was after the action meeting and right before we closed for school. So at the action meeting, Ms. Giddens did report that the audit committee wanted to meet with RSM, and if that was okay, and the board said yes and directed Chair Jordan to go ahead and set up that meeting and help facilitate that, which she did. And that was the meeting that was held right before the holidays in December to be able to see where RSM stood at the time and what was the recommendation to move forward. So I think it's just an update based on, you know, that short amount of time between the holidays that the board needs to be caught up on. But no major, obviously no major decisions or anything was done because this is a decision of the board.
Ask
Ms. Giddens?
Can I please give a comment?
Well, I think that, yes.
You guys keep acting like I hid something.
No,
from-
Ms. Giddens.
Okay, can I please speak?
Yes, please do.
On the calendar, was that on the calendar? That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes, it was. Yes.
That meeting, that.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Ms. Gittens, go ahead, please.
I really don't, it's like I'm not being
Gittens,
believed.
could you please?
Okay, please don't talk to me in that tone.
Oh, I'm just asking you if you could please give your
Will you
report.
let me finish?
Thank you.
I've been trying to talk for the last 10 minutes to explain that, yes, it was brought before you. It was agreed by the board that the audit committee would have this meeting. You all heard it, you agreed on it, and it is in the minutes that you did. I did not do anything clandestine that you didn't hear about. It was held the very last day before Christmas break. It was on the 17th, I think was the last, it was the very last day. So there has not been an opportunity to get with all of you to talk about it. I said I would do it when we first came back. This is our first meeting. So there is nothing that happened that you are not aware of. There were no decisions made. There was discussion, and I can tell you, the audit committee is very concerned as well that we get this taken care of. That's why they rushed to get the meeting done before the holiday. And everyone was gracious in doing that. We have a very experienced and good group of people in the audit committee that have lots of experience and they know what they're talking about. And they held the conversations, not me. It was about the actual audits and what they would do and what they did do. And that's all I can tell you. We are waiting to see, they wanted to know what are the possibilities. And RSM is not going to move forward without some knowledge of what a contract would look like. Nothing has been decided. Once the attorney finishes looking at it and talking with them about it, there is something to bring back to the group so that you can say yay or nay.
Oh, I guess their question is, what is the timeline? What are we looking at on the timeline?
As soon as...
Yes, Mr. Preber.
No, go ahead, Ms. Gittens, I'll wait.
So, Mr. Preverno, what is the timeline?
Oh, I don't know about the timeline. The only thing I was going to say was that the contract that they requested, I requested prior to the holidays, and I already sent it to RSM so that they can vet it in their legal department. So the ball is in their court.
That was going to take a bit of time because everyone was going to be, the people that needed to vet it were going to be on break for the holiday. So it is definitely in the works and will be taken care of as soon as possible. And Ms. Gittens will be following up with them. Okay. Ms. McClung?
Thank you. So, Ms. Gittens, will you be bringing that on the agenda, or do we need to schedule a workshop as part of our planning process?
I don't know if you want to workshop it. I mean, it's up to the board. We will bring forward the conversation and what happened, and there is no definitive answer right now. The holdup is whether or not they can do the contract and whether everyone abides by, yes, we can, or no, we can't.
So once that information's available, my understanding is then you'll just provide that to the board. We don't really need to put it on a schedule in terms of a briefing or a workshop. You'll provide that when it's available. Is
Well,
that
I
correct?
don't know how you can schedule a workshop until we get the information back as to whether RSM is even amenable to doing it based on the contract that they're working on.
Okay, thank you.
It's up in the air, folks, right now. But I can tell you that the committee is just as concerned about doing this as the rest of you. And they talked about, some timeline of where they stopped off, where they left off, and which things they had already done, and where they would want to start, and bringing that back to the board, because we had a list. They were supposed to do this, this, and this. And everything is on hold until we can find some agreement of a contract. That's just it.
Thank you. Are there any other topics?
Ms. Fisher?
I just have one last question. Is RSM the only candidate under consideration by the Finance Committee? By the Audit Committee? Sorry.
At this point, they only spoke with RSM because of the timeliness of it. There was discussion about the fact that finding someone, it's like finding a bus driver or a teacher. They're not there. And that's going to take so much more time, which is why we were trying to be able to work with someone to get us in compliance before another year goes by.
I did hear that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other topics that need to be added to the list?
Let's see any at this time.
All right. Thank you for your time this afternoon. That's all for me.
Thank you, Ms. McClung. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we are at good of the order, and I am going to start with Ms. Morgan.
Okay. So I sent you guys an email talking about two presentations that I attended at FSBA, and several other board members were able to also. The first presentation was making meetings student-focused rather than adult-focused, and that was by A.J. Craybill, who is a governance coach, former Kansas City School Board member, and current Texas Deputy Commissioner of Education. He worked with the Duval Board to develop a district strategic plan when they brought in their new superintendent. The other presenter was Darrell Willey, who's on the Duval County School Board, and Scott Schneider, who is their chief of schools. And they talked about transforming achievement gaps into opportunity bridges. But the bottom line is that when the Duval Board hired a new superintendent, they basically went back to the beginning. They brought in a coach. They created a strategic plan. They created a way of work. They created a calendar. And I think we should be talking about doing the same thing when we have a new superintendent on board. The reason I bring it up now is because scheduling someone like Mr. Crayhill is going to be difficult if we try to do it short term. He will be presenting to FSBA I believe at the next meeting, and I think once he presents, there will be a lot of interest in the kind of work that he is doing with boards. So I am bringing it up now to ask those of you who did not attend or were not able to hear either of those presentations to please to connect with Mr. Craighill and to connect with Daryl Willey and just get some feedback from them about how they work. Because I intend to bring forward within the month a recommendation that we reach out and create a schedule, probably in the fall, to get this going. So that is, that's my request of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
And I gave all of the contact information in the email, and if anybody needs the contact information, please, let me know.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
I have nothing today.
Ms. Gittens?
I have a proposal that I just sent to you all in an email. It's called Unity Resolution. And I was approached by some of the community members after a discussion about how we really need to find some way to unite. And in my conversation with this group, they said, they entitled it, "Now is the Time to Unite." And what we are asking to do, since it is Martin Luther King's birthday celebrations will be throughout our community, I think that it's the least that we could do as far as participation. But what they have proposed to do is at our meeting tomorrow, and I'll bring forth the motion, just to say this brief statement: we resolve that Dr. Martin Luther King's vision that children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. All policies, training, teaching, communication programs, and activities provided or supported by this organization will align with this principle. Why? Because we need the ability to unify and find common ground at this time. It is a unifying statement. It's a nationally recognized holiday and a historical icon figure that is well respected and known by staff and students. I personally think that it's a good thing to do. It's just a simple gesture. And I would like to propose it, and I'll bring it up for a motion for tomorrow if that's the way that I should do that. I just feel that we as a group need to unify our community behind one thing at least, and then go from there.
Ms. Gittens, can you resend that? You said you sent that?
I didn't get it either.
I don't have it.
So,
Me either.
I don't think it went to anybody.
I've hit.
Okay, let me hit
received the whole
send
time.
again.
Yes, you have
If I could, through the chair, direct a question. Ms. Gittens, could you just change the word resolve to acknowledge? I understand there's some legal consequences associated with.
That's why I wanted to bring it before you to see,
receive it?
was there anything?
To her read it.
Oh.
And I understand staff is working on resolutions and what the board's going to do with regard to those, so if you could just change it to acknowledge, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Other comments? That's why I brought it up.
Is this considered a resolution, through the chair, I'm sorry, is this considered a resolution?
No, that's why I asked her to change.
Well,
Thank you.
As an acknowledgement,
Oh, acknowledgement, okay.
but we,
do we want to say resolution, or can we just say it is a statement of this board that now is the time to unite, and read that part, and that's it?
read that one more time, or send it?
It's sent again.
Oh, you did?
No, this is not everything you just read, I don't think.
Yeah, it is. It should be. Okay, I'll read it again. Now is the time to unite.
No?
We acknowledge, I just changed that Dr. Martin Luther King's vision that, quote, children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. All policies, training, teaching, communication programs, and activities provided or supported by this organization align with this principle. Not will, but I think align with that principle. Do you see any way to change that? Yes.
Yes, please,
Yeah,
Ms. Vaughn.
it references this organization. Is that, you're talking about the school district here, or what?
Yes. Or, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Do
to
you-
say this organization, to me, that's not,
Okay, how would you change it, Ms. Vaughn?
well, I'm just now reading it for the first time, so one thing is, I would probably, just off the top of my head, say supported by School District of Lee County, something like that, because to me, this organization isn't, but.
Go ahead, Ms. Dupree Bruno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No problem with finish. Agree that it should be an acknowledgement, and the other things that will align with that and conform all legal statutory applications.
You are very difficult to hear.
Can you just read what the last line should be?
I think that Ms. Walker said, I agree with Mr. Speaker, to be an acknowledgement, and I want something that will pull and conform to the legal and statutory requirements and policies, actually I would add, and policies from the Department of Education, both federal and state.
Can you send it to me in a quick email because I'm not understanding? Okay, so I have all policies, training, teaching, communication programs, and activities provided.
This is about conform.
Or supported by this school district. It's not reading right now. How would we wordsmith that? Communication programs provided or supported by the school district align with that principle. Okay, so shall I read it again or send it again?
May I suggest, if.
Go ahead.
Get with Ms.
Dupree Bruno.
I'm sorry, Attorney Dupree Bruno offline and get the language tight and then email the board.
And then I'll send it this afternoon. But I just need to know, is there an appetite to do this?
If I have issues with the
I'm
language,
not
I'll let
asking
the
for
attorney
it,
know.
I mean, through the chair, I'm not asking you to vote. So would you ask for that, please?
Yes. Are you all okay with Ms. Dupree Bruno and Ms. Gittens coming up and tweaking some of the words and sending it back out to us?
Absolutely.
Bless you, Ms. Fisher.
Bless you.
Are we okay?
Yes, we're okay.
Okay, I will do that and get it back to you prior to, probably later on this evening so that it can be,
And Ms. Dupree Bruno, did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. Was that the only thing that you had?
I'm done
Ms.
for
Gittens?
now.
Yes, no?
I'm done for now.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Mr. Trika?
I don't have anything for good of the order, but I want to thank Ms. Gittens for bringing that up and not bringing it up tomorrow night and giving me the time to think about it and ruminate on it and all of that. So I just want to acknowledge the following of our process and protocols and say that I appreciate that. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli?
I have none other than Taco Tuesday and pizzas. My granddaughter, I have to do it. I'm going to be in trouble if I don't, so thank you.
Okay, tomorrow's Taco Tuesday in the parking lot, I'm just saying.
Yes, that's right.
Ms. Fisher?
I have nothing more for the good of the order. I just want to thank my colleagues for a good meeting and our staff and visitors and our security and sheriff for staying with us. Thank you.
And Ms. Gittens has one more thing to say.
I just have one more little thing. I meant to say this. When I stated earlier that I was disappointed, I hope staff understood that And I just want to have it on record that it was my opinion, and I am not attacking or accusing anyone. Anything that is done in this district is not done by one staff member or one department. It's done by everybody, and it is voted on by us. So it is not an attack or an accusation of anything. So I just want to make sure of that.
Thank you. And the only thing I want to say is thank you all for being so patient, working all together for the superintendent search. Mr. Dodick will be bringing things before us tomorrow, information. Him and his staff has been very gracious and have been working with Ray & Associates, and we are moving forward to make sure that staff, community, everyone has an input. So I thank you for that. And Dr. Savage, do you have anything for the good of the order?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Dupree-Bruno?
I do not, thank you.
Seeing no other issues that come before this board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.